It looks like we were good to be aware that the market had low implied volatility, and we actually felt that there was a lot of likeliness to end up going outside of that daily expected move, and that's exactly what ended up happening. And we tested that 9-day moving average, and we're seeing some buying pressure step up. So we're going to get into the shorter time frames for the SPY in this video, but we have a lot to get to because there was a lot going on behind the scenes, right? We had Kash Patel, FBI director position there. We have Doge, doing their thing over there, trying to find some stuff. And then we also see some weird things going on. And one of the things that we pointed out in yesterday's video, if you would like to see it, is JP Morgan, right? We're pointing out JP Morgan because yesterday we were showing, we gave a very extensive review of why I shorted JP Morgan yesterday, which on this big downward push, I actually ended up taking some profit already. And we have daily expected moves. If you do have JP Morgan, we do have daily expected moves for Friday over on Patreon. The link is in the description. We have all of the daily expected moves out there. They will be posted right after I'm done making this video. So if you need that, if you're still holding on to this, you might want to look for those little take profit type areas because you do see reactions sometimes off of daily expected moves, and it looks like you might have one down at my first level that I'm really paying attention to. So if you want to know why we were really leaning towards this, and still the most probable thing is this is going to maybe even get uglier but end up in the upward direction later on because of the positioning of the MACD, but I just wanted to point this out. And the reason that we were aware of this, and the big reason that I was shorting it as well, was one, to put my money where my mouth was, but two, what is JP Morgan trying to tell us with this overall move? And I'm not going to read into what the media thinks about it. I'm going to do my own research and I'll look into this over the weekend. But I wanted to show you something very similar to the JP Morgan look, and that would be GLD. And I'm even going to give you monthly expected moves and weekly expected moves to show you how these reactions are at those type of levels if you're someone who's a little bit hesitant about those type of moves. And we pull up the chart on my other charts, right? I don't have everything pulled up on this, but we do have those weekly and monthly expected moves, and you notice they are right next to each other. Now, Patreon members, you've already seen a video about this, right? We put a video out this around 11:30 today to show you guys gold and how it has been ripping and ripping and ripping, and everyone is saying, if you're not buying gold, you're an idiot. And then we go, well, we're running into the monthly expected move, which means we have a 68% chance to close below this line by the end of the month. That would be over here, right? This is the last day of the month over here. And we haven't consolidated in a long time. We have a MACD that is extremely high up. It's actually at some of the points where you do see those things start to roll over. If you just look at that MACD real quick, you're seeing that dotted line touch across on a lot of the times we get to MACD readings like this. And yes, it can go a little bit higher, but this is an area where you start to see potential pullbacks, right? Now that could look in the form of this, but it also could be, as we have seen a more extended move without a pullback, we actually could be seeing something a little bit worse. If you notice from that low down here that was confirmed, we notice that that move is almost equal. So I'm really paying attention to this right now, and we're going to break it down for you. The 2 hour. First thing we want to do is notice that the daily MACD is up high, up high, up high. We're at a monthly expected move and a weekly expected move. That's fantastic. So now I start to look at a 2 hour chart. What do I notice on the 2 hour chart? I notice that divergence has overall confirmed, but it's not the best confirmation. We see that these bars are not a good negative bar below the 9, or even a bar that takes you below the 5 for this to break this low to start maybe filling this gap. And then we got to see what happens, right? Gold's still remaining very strong, so we don't want to be overly bearish on it. We just want to be like, okay, this is a trade opportunity because we see the divergence on the MACD. We see the divergence all the way across this RSI with a quadruple divergence. And that's why we want to be paying attention, because we have a new data point. These things popped up in the past, right? These things probably popped up in the past. Yeah, they popped up here, it popped up here, but now we're paying attention because now we have a hard data point that we calculated using the data, the options data, and now we see that 2 hour divergence. And what does 2 hour divergence like to do? It likes to curl down daily charts, okay? So this looks like to me that GLD is most likely going to see some kind of pullback here, unless it just goes sporadic. And something we need to be paying attention to here is when they look into Fort Knox. I genuinely think that this is interesting that we're making these big reversal signals right as we're about to go check Fort Knox. So we'll be looking into what's going to happen there. I don't want to speculate too much. Now, if that 2 hours already crossed, but if I want to see if it has a good shot to cross, I want to see 30-minute divergence. And what do you notice on this MACD? We see the 30-minute divergence outside of the weekly expected move and the monthly expected move. And then we also see that is that holding on the RSI? And we do see that it is holding on the RSI at this point. Now, this doesn't mean that gold can't make a move to a daily expected move, see some kind of upward move, and then cross back down or get rid of that signal. But it does mean to me that this trade is on until that 30-minute does cross up into positive territory, right? If this crosses up, I want to just be sure that I'm not saying this is going down, because that's completely contradicting my trade, right? If this is turned up, it's completely contradicting a short trade. So I would want to manage that position, see that maybe go to a higher level, and if it confirms again, I can get right back in. That's how I mitigate risk, and that's how I trade like water. Now, what is the reason for managing risk if this curls up? Well, because crazy stuff happens up here, right? 32% chance to land up here outside of a weekly, outside of a monthly, 68% chance to land down in here. So if there's a 32% chance, that means I could see something crazy. So just in case I see something, like, I'm not guaranteed to make that divergence. Just because I see this does not mean it has to do that. Because I see this, it means that would go completely against my trade, get out, okay, get back in. If this part does not happen, then I will not be back in the trade. And that's pretty simple there. But the main thing to get away from this is now you have 30-minute signals, you have 2-hour signals on your MACD and RSI at the same time again, and you have a daily that is screaming higher, screaming higher, screaming higher, and looks like it needs a pullback. So that's what we're paying attention to. I just wanted to give that little show off of what's going on with GLD and why there could be weakness coming around the corner for it, and kind of a similar setup to what JP Morgan was overall showing, a 2-hour divergence and a 30-minute divergence at the same time with a daily MACD that's really high up. It's very similar to JP Morgan. What is going to go on with gold to turn it down if this is going to be correct, right? It's not a 100% signal, but if it is correct, what the heck's going to happen with it? And so the other side of that we need to be paying attention to is actually the dollar. So I think you need to be watching the dollar, even though everyone's telling you the dollar is collapsing, and it kind of is. But one thing that I'm interested in, and I know I'm using my other chart, so I don't have key levels for this right now, but one thing that I'm interested in is big move, medium move, decent sized move. I'll still call it, similar to this, ABC. And then now we're starting to do this. If the dollar starts to make an upward move very, very soon, aka tomorrow, we could be seeing a big trap for the weekend. So just be aware of that. And that is something very important to point out, because the dollar could see positivity, and that actually adds more credibility to gold seeing negativity, right? Because these are negatively correlated, but the correlation has not been holding very true in the recent time. So just be aware of that. But strength from the dollar could mean weakness in gold. Gold is giving reversal signals. And so I want to pay attention if this 4-hour divergence does confirm for the dollar, because that could mean that people are running to cash pretty quick. That could mean that the daily is going to cross up and we might see another daily move from the dollar. If this does not form and we go down to lower levels, we're looking for that reaction to potentially set up a head and shoulders in these areas for the DXY. Now, there's one last thing I wanted to show you. I know this is another big intro again, but we're talking about some good stuff, and these are just things to be aware of before we get into the SPY and the Qs and give you guys those daily expected moves. JPY. The JPY is gaining strength, and this is something that I'm going to keep my eye on today. Because why would I keep my eye on that today? Well, because I got it wrong the last time I mentioned it. I thought it said Japanese inflation rate. I do not have China selected, but it still gave me Chinese data instead. But on this, we noticed that the inflation rate year over year is supposed to come out for the JPY, and they're having to raise rates. So if you've been paying attention to the yen carry trade, well, if this ticks up, it would have them increasing rates most likely again. So we will be paying attention to that, as you see from the data that comes out in just a little bit, in about an hour and a half from me filming this. So I will be looking into it, and we'll be talking about it tomorrow. But the inflation rate year over year is supposed to tick up to 3.7, previously 3.6. Core inflation rate year over year, though, supposed to be 3%, supposed to tick up to 3.1 to 3.2%. So those are tick ups in both, and those are still very elevated levels. So they most likely will have to react, which means that this weekly chart could be curling up, and it is, right? We were looking for that positivity. We are aware of this. Last weekend's video, we were talking about how this could turn up. And the last time this happened, which will bring us back to the SPY, some bad things happened. So we got to get looking at the SPY, because the last time that this happened, we saw this moment right here. on the exact date that that went, on July 15th, we saw that curl go for one more touch up, and then everything flushed. So let's get into it. So sorry guys, I'm just having some fun doing videos in a little different kind of way to keep it nice and spicy, but I want you to take this very seriously, and that's why I mentioned the JPY very early on, towards the end of the intro actually. Sorry about that. Towards the end of the intro, we mentioned JPY because now we're going to look at these bigger timeframes and show, oh, the SPY does have divergence across. Oh, the SPY does have that divergence on the MACD. Oh, the SPY does have divergence on the RSI at the same time, almost triple divergence. If you really zoom into this MACD, the daily chart is saying, I have divergence even now, so we are going to be paying serious attention to if this daily MACD does cross down here, and that's a big deal, and that's why we also wanted to show off that dollar that could potentially create that floor. But we are aware that a lot of these crash moments or anything like that, any downturn, bigger downturns, the dollar sometimes does go in that downward direction first, but then it catches a bounce, so that's very interesting to me. Now, let's get into those shorter time frames. Let's look at this 30-minute, because this is really what we want to be watching at this time. The 30-minute, we notice that for tomorrow, we do have daily expected moves of 613.41 to the upside. We have 607.35 to the downside. And that's very important to see, right? We're seeing these spread out a little bit, but they're not getting overly dramatically huge, right? So something that we're aware of is if we always go make the triple dip to the upside, right? The triple top to the upside, if you will, right? The reason we were pointing this out yesterday and in the on the Patreon was just because this downward divergence right here likes to curl down 2-hour charts, and you have that at the same time on the MACD and RSI. That adds a lot of credibility too, especially when you have a very small range like this. It adds a lot of credibility to you're probably going to see something a little bit more, right? We were overall stating, do you think the market's going to go down 0.3%, or do you think if it got any kind of selling in it at all that it could potentially go down a little bit more, like 1%? That's about how low we went here. We broke through the previous low because this was confirming up on the MACD. We can treat this like a low. We have lost that, so let's pay attention to if we are still going to see that upside move. Okay, looks like we are going to go test that high. If we see something crazy, we could go all the way up to that weekly expected move tomorrow, and that would be nuts. I'm not leaning towards that. I think that the 30-minute does have the opportunity, if we're going to get bullish, to curl up, and then I think resistance could come in at that high, and if we want to remain in the upward direction, aka keep us going higher, I think we'll need to do some kind of consolidation like this in order to do that. So that's the bull side. But what's the bear side? The bear side is maybe even the same thing, right? You come up to this area, you double top, you create that next divergence point, and then you fall down again, trapping everyone before the weekend. And that's something that we'll seriously be paying attention to. The other way that this could overall fall is this just confirms down again right now on the 30-minute, because the 2-hour is down. As long as this is facing in the downward direction, we could just see little reactions up and then end up seeing that full pullback down to something like 602. So these are just little things to pay attention to, but you are technically in 2-hour pullback mode. As of right now though, if we were talking about the bullish case that we were talking about, if we actually saw a drop here, we were saying you really want to retest these type of levels, and that's overall what you're doing now. So don't be surprised if this ends up seeing it curl up on the 30-minute and goes to something like 613.41 to the upside tomorrow. And don't worry, we'll be touching on VIX later, right? We'll be looking at the volatility towards the end of this video just to get a good glance of that. Looks like a retest right now. We'll see what happens, but this has spread out a little bit for the Qs. We see that these MACDs are pretty deep, right, on these 30 minutes. So even a good reaction like this can take you up to that 541.21. Downside move is 533.25 for tomorrow. Once again, if you want daily expected moves for all the stocks that we cover, including JP Morgan for tomorrow, and we're going to give a weekly range for JP Morgan next week, join the Patreon. Give it a try. It's heading towards the end of the month. This is a great time to join the Patreon as well. We'll start talking about that more towards the end of the month when we give monthly expected moves. But for this right now, the daily or the 30-minute curling up says, hey, yeah, it's a pretty high potential to be a lower high. So just be paying attention to that. As of right now, you're testing that breakdown, really a breakdown area. You can go a little bit higher to test that, right? 538.50 or so. But if we see how this is curling up, then that would say that most of the 30-minute is just saying, hey, we're pointing in this direction. And it's very likely we could see that 541.21 as people probably piled on some bearish bets. But when we look at the PCC, it's only at 0.78 or 0.77 in the CPC printing at 0.75. So people are overall bullish with this drop, which is very interesting to me throughout the day. But once again, bullish thing would just be, hey, this is the most likely thing. If we can hold up better and keep curling up to the upside, okay, as we approach a monthly expected move. It's very interesting if we stop short of that by a bit there, because you do gravitate towards these levels pretty often. But bull case, we'll see if we can get to that 541.21, but the 2 hour is suggesting that we have more pulling back to do. So be looking out for traps out there, because this could end up going a lot lower. You are testing a gray area, so we want to pay attention to if buyers really do step in and if we don't see reversal signals complete. But at this moment, it seems to me, hey, we could still see that upside move. And if that fails, if it doesn't see a good move and hold up, if that fails, ooh, we could end up going lower, and this might be a pretty big trap for the weekend. So just be cautious with the QQQs. It looks like we are in 2 hour pullback mode, but that 30-minute is trying to make an upward move on Friday. And this is where I seriously wanted to talk about the DIA. This is how things are right now. Based on the chart that you're looking at, when you're not looking at the SPY and the Qs together, you have to take this almost individually, but you can still pay attention to the confirmations from the SPY and the Qs. Individually, more like, hey, I want to pay attention to indices, okay, but if I'm paying attention to a trade in an individual stock, I just want to take that analysis with what that individual stock is doing and use all of my management practices within that, right? I don't want to be utilizing, like we do sometimes, other stocks in this environment. We don't want to be utilizing the looks of other stocks to really dictate like, hey, what's probable here? What's probable there? We can look into those things, but I think right now we just need to be paying attention to direction. As of right now, we see that the DIA, yeah, that flushed, but it had a small weekly expected move. It came down to the bottom. It's still holding that overall flagging. And so if this just goes like that, we can see one more upward move and then set a trap for that new all-time high trap, and we'll be paying attention to it. This has confirmed like, hey, we're trying to be a lower high, but it's consolidating so well that a break to the upside could be some kind of trap at this moment. We'll be paying attention to this as it forms. If this blows through these divergence levels here, well, then it might not be a trap, and we might end up going higher into March of 2025. Apple, one thing I really want to be looking at for Apple is the hourly chart. I know I don't look at hourlies very often, but look at this price action. The 30 minutes getting all wonky, so why not make it a little more clear for myself and see if the hourly is able to confirm a MACD here. Now, do I think that the bullish trade is the best trade? I actually do not. But I do think we need to be paying attention to if the hourly curls up and sets up a divergence point here, okay? Because we are heading into our zone. If we need that divergence to pull us back down because this 2 hour is getting pretty damn overbought and it's saying, hey, we're squeezing, but I want to pull back, well, we could be in a situation where Apple sees a mean drop. Now, that's not to say this is a bad thing, right? It's built up very well. There's no 2 hour divergence except for a small one on your RSI, very tight. So I don't think that this will be anything too bad. But if we confirm up, there might be a trade set up for us to take this to the downside. That might want to come back and retest something like 236.36 or a little bit higher up towards 240 before we actually see the next upside move. But the main thing here is if I want to be very, very diligent with it, I could look for Apple. I could see the weekly expected move maybe for next week. I could see that 2 hour drop down into that move and then curl up into positive territory. And then I have myself a nice little swing trade. So utilizing weekly and monthly expected moves is a very good thing to do in this type of environment with your individual trade. And that's just pretty much it for Apple. If we are going to end up with something uglier, you are going to see a daily MACD curl down. And that is the main signal that says, hey, we're most likely heading to lower prices for Apple. Tesla doing the thing with the flat divergence on the MACD, the not necessarily divergence on the RSI at the same time. So I'm kind of iffy on these signals as of right now for Tesla, but our 357.78 becoming important again, right? We really kind of held up at that level and then wiped it out. So very nice that it's coming in for these little touches. It really proves, hey, we're finding a key level from a long time ago, right? We used that a long time ago. So what do I need to be paying attention to here? Well, if that 30-minute curls up, we do have a chance. As you're pretty close to positive territory, I want to say you got a good shot to test the high, go make a new one. Watch out for a divergence that pops up on the MACD and RSI at the same time, because when they're at the same time, I like them a lot more. They play out a lot better. And the reason that I'm watching that is because the 2 hour is right by that center line. And I want you to notice how the 2 hour was about to go positive and just stopped. It just literally stopped. So if we get that swing up and we curl back down, that would be a 30-minute signal that says this 2 hour is going to drop. And then we'd be looking for a 2 hour divergence or a 2 hour higher low from Tesla. So I'd be a little bit worried about this. The only way that really the bullishness can start to really kick in here is we've taken back the 5-day. We're retesting that right now. That's fine. And then if we see this actually extend enough to curl up a daily chart and not really form those 30-minute divergences, well, Tesla could catch a bid here, and Tesla actually could curl up this MACD, end up curling up into positive territory and seeing a good move to potentially go retest something like 384, to potentially even go up to retest something up here, right? Towards the highs of 429.11, right? We could see a good reaction, and then we want to see if that holds up better so we can make that head and shoulders to continue in that upward direction. If we stop short at any time, or we're not able to curl up again once we get to these areas, if we even do, right? We talked about the bearish case as well. But if that would curl up from here, we just want to pay attention if that's not curling up, or if that curls up slightly and fails, right? If we start to turn in the downward direction, if this daily just pops up and pops back down, the MACD positioning here is suggesting that Tesla has a good opportunity to be a lower high on the next move. So I would be watching out for this. The better trade setup, in my opinion, is being patient, seeing if this actually drops down first, and then you see some kind of double bottom or something like that. I think that would be a great trade setup. And then we'll have to pay attention, though, if this just sees bullishness right away and curls up a daily chart. Now we're going to talk about something interesting, and this is why I don't necessarily want to be reading into other stocks while looking at the SPY and the Qs too much, right? I can read into it a little bit. I don't want to read into it too much. Amazon is where, right? If you're at these levels, and you're part of Patreon, you know exactly what is here for Amazon. You're wondering if we get touches of those weekly expected moves. Well, Amazon is setting up a reversal signal, downward with the price action, upward with the MACD, upward with the RSI, all at the same time. Okay, so this tells me, just looking at this individually, that Amazon is potentially going to make a move to potentially go test that 5-day moving average and turn up this 2-hour chart. If the 2-hour chart can turn up, is this a great signal right now? That's what I'm going to talk about. Or do I need to be quick with it? I think this is a quick with it kind of signal. I do not think that this will end up just basing out and going to the sky unless we see that big bullishness that takes us past the center line. The positioning of the MACD on this 2-hour chart, even with the 30-minute divergence, is great, right? Because it tells me there could be a trade here, then I could take profit, see that turn back down, and then see a 2-hour divergence, maybe with a double bottom at the low, right? So we're looking for the structure to really say this is a low, and we don't want to be guessing that that divergence is going to confirm, right? Until the divergence confirms, it's technically not there, right? It's forming. But you have a 30-minute divergence that can cause a 2-hour pop. That does not mean that this can fully reverse around with a high probability. You have a bad positioning of the MACD as of this moment. You could see that curl up, reject from a key level like 228, and then we actually reject and turn down to actually give you that divergence point to mess around with as we go fill a potential gap. So that is something that I'm really watching for Amazon at this moment. It doesn't mean I can't take a little 30-minute trade. Just based on the positioning of the 2-hour, I would want to be very quick with it, and a lot of the time you react to this 5-day moving average for retest. So around that 5-day moving average, if I was taking this 30-minute trade, that's potentially where I'd be getting a take profit. Now we do have another way to take profit, which is daily expected moves for Friday, right? We're heading into Friday, so you actually would have a daily expected move. That would actually really help you out on for a Friday expiration like tomorrow. I don't want to spend too much time on Nvidia because I think that this just looks like it is consolidating, kind of wonky consolidation, but it is overall consolidating pretty well, and that's already curled up. So this is suggesting that Nvidia can see a good move, but let's watch out because we're heading into Friday and we have a sketchy weekend ahead of us. I really think we have an interestingly weird weekend ahead of us where the 30-minute did have divergence on the RSI, kind of flat. We saw the divergence on the MACD, not so flat, right? But if we're going to make another lip up, okay, let's head to that upside and realize that if we actually fail that move soon and we give up a lot of the price action of the day, we could be seeing another divergence point here on your MACD and RSI at the same time. If all those hold, we will be paying attention to that in the morning with you guys. I'm going to try to do a slightly longer stream tomorrow morning, okay? Just so you can hang out with us, ask questions about stocks, do all that good stuff. We like to look at stocks with you guys and talk about about random topics as well if you guys have any of those fun ones. But yeah, Nvidia, I don't want to spend too much time because it just looks like a 30-minute trying to confirm up. This is very, very simple. If the 30-minute turns down, that would add to negativity. That would add to, hey, we're losing the 5. That would add to, if we lose this low, you might be beginning a downtrend in some fashion for Nvidia. I still think Meta is going to vomit further. I want to be very clear about that. But I do look at this 2 hour and I go, man, that thing's dropping rapidly. It could continue, but I am seeing a little 30-minute signal here. It's starting to round out, right? We're starting to get those taperings coming in. We do have rejection divergence, but is that proving itself right now? Are we seeing like an hourly curl up? No, we're not seeing that proven in any way at this moment. So this could just be more consolidation, just a hold, and then cross down one more time. Now, I would be looking for quick divergences. The first level I wanted to pay attention to, let me look at a daily chart real quick. Yeah, the first level I was paying attention to, weirdly enough, this is kind of weird, but if you look at the daily chart for Meta and you see this, and then you look at the daily chart for JP Morgan, you see this. These are the 2 points that I'm really paying attention to for those stocks. So Meta, I'm actually really looking for this test of about 675.50. I think that would be a great test, but you see how we're sitting right on that 20-day moving average, right? So we're really watching this because the 30-minute is giving some sort of reversal signal with divergences really wonky on your RSI, but that could just be a reaction to go test that 5 and end up going lower. The positioning right now of the 2 hour is suggesting that, hey, this actually, if it did turn around right now, it might have an attempt to go try to take back that 5 and make some kind of new high. But you notice it's going to take a lot of buying pressure to come in at this moment because Meta is dropping pretty quickly. So the more likely thing is either you're going to drop to lower prices, then get that bounce, and then see that fail, and that would be really shown to you by the 2 hour getting deeper like Amazon and then crossing up and failing that overall move. And that's what I really want to be watching for at this point with Meta. But hopefully, I know, I'm going to say shout out Richard, shout out anyone who is trying to take the Meta play. I'm sure you're very happy with it. It was a sketchy one, but thankfully we actually saw the signal to take the play, right? We started to reach up towards a monthly expected move. Okay, we saw the 2 hour divergence, and now we're aware, hey, we have daily expected moves. If we get a reaction up, we could reject from there. Hey, if we get this down to here, we could get some kind of bounce from those levels for Meta. But fantastic look. The daily chart is curling down, and you are in pullback mode now for Meta, and that thing's dropping pretty quick. And at the end of it all, I think that this most likely will end up down towards 675 or all the way down to 630 at this point for Meta. Now, this was a trade we actually talked about on Patreon. Now, very wonky trade, but if you're paying attention to the right things, you're okay. You understood you're holding the tapering. You're not losing these lows. You have divergence all across this. Very wonky, but when do we pay attention? We pay more attention when it's actually close to the center line. So the go time was when we took back this 5 right here. That's a very clear signal for, hey, this is when you can make that attempt. 410, roughly 410. We see that nice extended move exactly to where we wanted to go, right? We drew this up very, very nicely and just said, if we want to head higher, we need a left, we need a head, we need a right shoulder, which means maybe Microsoft is going to see negativity. And this 30-minute chart would give you that indication saying, hey, I'm pretty overbought. Let me go retest that 5, gain some buyers, and then curl up into positive territory. So all I'm looking for here from Microsoft is for that to turn down for a moment and then curl up into positive territory. If this is going to start to get, say, uglier for Microsoft, like some kind of trap before the weekend, then we might be seeing an upward move actually first, and then we'll see a 2 hour actually be able to cross, potentially not even by the end of the day, right? Those traps over the weekend can be ugly, so you got to be cautious in this environment with the SPY up as high as it is at this moment. But we are seeing curl ups, I understand. I just think you need to have a plan going into your trade. What was the plan for Microsoft when I took this trade? Was it, hey, if the 2 hour confirms down, I'm bad? Is it using a trailing stop loss or something like that? What is the plan is the overall thing that I want a lot of people to focus on. The first thing is really trying to find an opportunity and then having a plan around that opportunity for both if things go right, but also if things go wrong. And Microsoft has the opportunity to do either one, so I would have a plan. Google is another one, right? On this 2 hour, just showing a bunch of 2 hour divergence, holding all of them. But don't think that because this 2 hour divergence is there, it's not necessary. It's all rejection. I don't like those rejections. You guys know that. Because if this just curls down now, you have built liquidity and you could see another big drop. So we don't want to see that. What we would maybe like to see is a quick downward drop of the 2 hour here to cross down this MACD and then curl back up into positive territory after testing 182.59. That would add a lot of credibility to a daily seeing an upward move. But for the time being, we have a bunch of 30-minute business going on down here. We have a 30-minute attempting to go positive, attempting to take back that 5. You've built some liquidity, so we'll see if we can get some kind of reaction here. What we're looking at here is an overall, hey, there's my line, okay? I need to get above that. I need to get above that, use that as support, and then see that start to make those higher highs and higher lows over time for Google. But I just want you to be aware, the bullish thing is, hey, the 30 minutes turned up. Do we take back the 5 and see those higher lows, higher highs? Or do we see some trouble tomorrow by the end of the day and we actually see this 2 hour cross down into negative territory? Gotta be cautious even with the upward plays in this type of environment, but we're taking it with an individual standpoint. AMC did the thing that we didn't want to see, but we were aware of it, right? We were drawing up that this would be a great area to react to, and we saw this big spike down. So at this moment, the 2 hour is very, very positive. That's a good thing for AMC. You're getting that, you know, if a 2 hour sees a pullback, you can violate the 5 day pretty often unless you're in a super bullish trend or something. So what we're looking for is this over here, right? We're looking for that to dip down. It already has. Now we're seeing if that 2 hour can curl up at any point. If the 2 hour is able to curl up, that is a great sign for AMC, and you have a lot of space in here where you could see a pretty decent size upward move, and that move would take you up to actually 437. Very nice, one of our old lines. So is AMC about to make a comeback? Because if all this starts to take place, you have a daily MACD that's trying to reach up towards positive territory. I mean, this is interesting to me. And people are saying, hey, you can't time this stuff. There's no way to time AMC. There's no way. Okay, tell that to my options that I took down here when I saw the 2 hour divergence, just like I do it every single time, okay? If you're paying attention to the right things, you're not getting into hype, you're not reading Twitter every 5 seconds, and you just understand how these things move, you can go, oh, there's a 2 hour divergence. Okay, I'm seeing an upward move. My options are not like fantastic even with this upward move right now. I want to see something better, right? I want to see something better, but to time this, you have to be patient. You have to understand that momentum is still going to show its face for AMC. And what you need to happen next is you need this 2 hour chart to be able to curl up into positive territory and keep that positive trend to keep AMC moving in the upward direction. GME. Another thing with GME, everyone's saying, this is just impossible to time. It's just terrible. There's no way to do it. Really? Then tell us this when we were talking about this back on around February 6th, talking about how, hey, if we form this divergence here, we could see a reaction. We want to pay attention if that 2 hour needs to make that floor, but if we take back the 5 and keep that 5 throughout, you can see positivity. And we noticed that we confirmed those divergences. Hey, yeah, it looked terrible, but this is something that I like to take no matter what the signal really looks like, as long as it's there, because GME moves pretty sporadically. And we noticed that it took back the 5. That meant positivity is back. We got the retest of the 5. We flagged out, got rid of the flag by going up. This thing is moving because of just momentum, man. It genuinely is just, hey, there's a 30-minute divergence. It's seeing a 2 hour move to the upside. And that's all this was at the end of the day. You have to understand those things, and then you have to understand how to utilize weekly expected moves, because from this low, we went up to a weekly expected move. We actually saw that tag, which is exactly what we wanted. Fantastic. And then we're looking for that right shoulder in some way, and it looks like we potentially could be making that kind of behavior right now. It is a little bit lower than you would like, right? But who cares? If this 2 hour turns up and you see a big move from GME, that's fantastic. You just have to understand that for GME, the battle truly begins at this purple line, and I'm going to update this purple line for you on Sunday, so make sure you are subscribed. Now, I did show you a bunch of signals that look like they could reverse around and get bullish again. I showed you a few things. I said, hey, the SPY could bounce tomorrow. That's great. That's all fine and dandy, but we broke out, right? We talked about this yesterday. The breakout, look for the retest, and I don't move these lines, guys. I try my best not to move these lines. I just connected the highs. You can see it's even a little bit off, so I'm not reading into it too much. I overall like to treat it as like a little zone almost, right? And then I just go, okay, if we see a reaction from there, that's a pretty good retest. And we did get the retest. We're in positive territory, so if the 30-minute turns up, you're probably going to see it wipe this out and go make a higher move. But if that creates a divergence, we'll be watching out, right? If it creates a divergence, then you start to see the 2-hour could cross. The 2-hour crossing down is the way that all of this is going to fail at this moment. We noticed that the daily was not able to confirm up by the end of the day. It was confirming almost this morning, right? When we were up here, it was starting to cross and see a little bit of green, but then it turns back down. So we got to be watching this over time and understanding that overall, if something's not breaking or big news isn't hitting, you're probably not going to see volatility pop off. But in this environment, this could be a retest. The 30-minute curls up. We curl up into positive territory. If that doesn't make the divergence, then you're going to see a daily confirmation on a Friday, and I would be very, very cautious over the weekend, right? We've been talking about this 1504 level. We've been talking about it for a long time. Why? Because it's always been on my charts. I've always marked off 1683, 1504, and 1212, and also the level of 20. 1504 is where we really are piling up right now. We are utilizing that level. If we continue to hold that level and we curl up on a daily chart, you will see volatility come into stocks. Okay, and then we just have to see if the SPY is starting to confirm a daily signal down. You notice that we are seeing a daily that looks like it wants to confirm to the upside for volatility, while seeing the SPY possibly even confirm a daily signal to the downside soon. So we will be watching. But thank you so much for watching this video. I know we went through a lot at the beginning. We went a lot through the middle, looking at a bunch of charts, and we're going through this stuff at the end. It's hard to keep this stuff straight. If you need to watch it again, do your thing. But just some stuff to be paying attention to out there, and then giving you guys some great levels to be paying attention to tomorrow. And then we can talk about this stuff in the morning in real time while the market is actually moving. And then I've said this on the live show this morning on Patreon. I'm going to try to be putting out more update videos on Patreon, more update videos where I'm talking about signals like JP Morgan, like gold, right? Like gold with the 2-hour divergences and everything like that going on with gold. And we're going to be showing those things off, not as a way to say, hey, take this, it's going to be easy, it's 100%. No, it's to show you what a good decision versus a bad decision is. As of right now, I think it is a good decision to potentially be shorting GLD with the signals that we do have. And I'm just saying that to show good decision making. And then we can take into consideration the last one that we talked about, which is JP Morgan, and that is seeing some dramatic downside. So we were right, and that's fantastic. When you're right, that's fantastic. When you're wrong, you want to be managing your trade very closely, because a big loss is what really separates good traders. This is what separates good traders that are willing to take a small loss and react and admit that they were wrong, or you take a big ass loss because you're not willing to, your ego gets in the way, you are not accountable. Start to make a plan. Start to make a plan for if things go wrong and react, and you will start to lose a lot less money in the market. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Thank you so much for being a part of this community. If you're new here and you want to come ask us some questions in the morning, please join us for the live stream in the morning. We are open to all kinds of questions. I will look at any chart for you if you're a new subscriber or anything like that. But thank you so much. Have a fantastic night, and I will see you guys in the morning. Peace out.